good morning, Kelowna. It is a beautiful Saturday again. Hey, a little frosty last night, Ken. A little frost on the pumpkins. So there's no pumpkins left, but it was a little frosty. I came out to the greenhouse, and there was a crispiness to the lawn as I walked across. A bit of a crispiness, you know. Let's do the tips and plants of the week, Ken.
Yeah, you betcha.
Well, my tip of the week is... think of a child or a young person who would benefit from a gardening experience. I mean, just think about that and then apply that into action and turn a young person onto gardening. It's the best thing you could ever do to them. There might be a gardening video game. I don't know.
No, if you don't get the dirt under your fingernails, it doesn't count.
That's right. Okay, and my plant of the week is an old-fashioned plant that we used to sell for years, and we still do in the industry. The Rieger begonia. The Rieger begonia.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, good one.
I haven't pulled that one out for a long time, and the reason I did was we received a Rieger begonia as
nice.
As a gift, and I thought, the good old Rieger begonia. That's my
awesome
tips and plants.
Awesome choice. All right, I also have a tip and a plant, and my tip of the week is that a good idea this time of year. You're getting a lot of leaves right now. Some of the leaves are actually green, which is, it means there's a little more nutrient in them, I guess. But the leaves that do fall off the trees, they kind of scatter around. One thing that you can do with them is you can put them into garbage cans or into large pots, that sort of thing, just to store them over the winter. Some people even just put them into garbage cans. I find they get a little putrefied, but I'd rather put them into actually a garbage can and then put some moisture in there, put the lid on it, and let them mold over the winter. And by spring, you're starting to get a really nice leaf mold happening. Generally, by around the month of June, that leaf mold has come through to fruition, and it's ready to be used in the garden, particularly in vegetable gardens. Leaf mold is a beautiful thing. All right, my plant of the week this week is very close to Dawn's plant, which was kind of funny, was the Begonia Rex. So isn't that funny? We both got begonias. This is one of the
very first times.
We've been close, yeah. Begonia Rex is a plant that's really grown for its leaves. The fibrous begonia type that the Rieger begonia that Don was talking about is definitely grown for its flowers, very floriferous. But the Begonia Rex really has those beautiful, colorful leaves and just kind of a very cool plant. Every time I see the new ones that come out every year, it just blows my mind. They're just so beautiful. They make an excellent house plant and a very exotic outdoor plant in the summertime, as particularly in your planters. That's my tips and plants for this week. Remember to check growercoach.com.
There you go, Ken. And the begonia family is huge, just like a lot of these plants that we start discovering. Mm-hmm. In my old age here, I am really discovering new plants, and I'm becoming a bit of a plant collector, which is a lot of fun because there's going to be a lot of plants to get rid of when I leave the earth. I'll tell you, but we'll see. I might take them with me. Who knows?
You never know.
I just could take them with me, like the Egyptians used to do. They take everything with them, bury everything, all their swords and bows and arrows and chariots and everything. They get buried with them. Okay. Well, it did get frosty last night. It's not real cold. I mean, November can give us anything. November, December, January, February, they can be killers. They can get out there and do their thing. And so I'm watching the weather like a hawk now. I've got my banana put together to bed. I got all my stuff. I got my dahlias in. I've got the geraniums all in and rooting and whatever. I got all that stuff going on. I'm just watching because the last job of the fall, as winter approaches, is to put my cover on the fig.
Right.
It's so important because I had so many figs this year, Ken. It was hard to figure out the whole thing. It was really tough to figure out the whole fig situation. But anyway,
how you were going to eat them all.
I know, and I put them on my cereal, and I just ate them right off the bush. It was amazing. And
they are a beautiful thing. That's something that's very unique. Anybody who does, have that opportunity to eat a fig right off a tree, it's just unbelievable. It's one of the tastiest things you have to experience.
Yeah, they are. A little bit funny on the texture. Donna is not fond of the texture.
Yeah.
But you got to get past the texture and get into the taste. And the softer and what looks like overripe they are, the sweeter they get.
Yeah.
They're very, very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Turkish figs. Well, I guess we should invite some calls because that's what we're all about here on the AM 1150 Garden Show. We like to hear people's questions and offer advice to them, and they can offer advice to us too. We learn just as much from our callers as they do from us. 250-862-2525 to get through to us today, and it's just a beautiful day in the neighborhood, Ken. I have carrots still. I harvested, first time ever, I've grown green onions, what they call green onions.
Yeah.
The little guys that
actually called green onions.
Yeah. And you lift them when they're tiny and you chop up the foliage and the onion itself. Mm-hmm. I put them in my soup. I put a little handful in my soup and everything.
Oh, they're great.
We had about 4 crops of those this year, planting in sequence in succession. Yeah. And Ken, you've heard it so many times. People say, "When do you plant your garden?"
Yeah, always.
Yeah, always.
Yeah,
I've still got carrots that are they're not big, but they're nice, tasty young carrots, and I can pull them as we get ready. And as it gets to be frosty, then covering them up might be a good thing to do, just to and then just unbury a few when you need them. I've got the garlic. I put my last bit of garlic in just about a week ago, and I'm looking forward to that in the spring. I love the garlic. Mm-hmm. I'm going to plant fewer of the Kelsey onions this next spring,
right?
Because I just had so many. I planted 1,000 of them, and
wow,
I had so many Kelseys that I couldn't. And
you have pretty good success with onions.
Well, I do, but the where I have the success is getting them in early.
Right.
Ken, the ones that I planted early versus the ones that got long in the tooth in the pot, in the pack, it was like something triggered them, and they didn't size up in the garden.
Yeah.
Even though they had a long time to go, they came to maturity, and the tops started dying before they really sized up.
So which ones were those? The ones that you planted early, or the ones that you planted late?
The ones that I planted late didn't size up.
Right.
The ones that I planted early when they were very young in the thing, what I'm saying is leaving them in the packs.
Yeah.
Something triggered them to go to maturity quickly, rather than the early ones that I planted. They were loose and young.
They must
have
been stressed out or something.
I think they get stressed in the pack. They just, something triggers them that they didn't come first, because they had lots of time to do it. I thought to myself, well, if I plant these that I've got left over, right? I had a bunch left over in June. I planted them in June, and those are the ones that didn't size up. And yet they had July and August to do that, but they just didn't. So anyway, that's the way it goes. Are we going to go to the phone lines? We're going to take a short break here, and then we got Dan phoning in.
Nice.
And we're going to talk to him when we come back with more AM 1150. You betcha. We've got Don Burnett and Ken Salvail here for the 1769th time. We're going to talk.
Still going.
And we've got Dan Bruce join us again this morning. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, Ken. Good morning, Don. How are you?
We're well.
Good,
we're
thanks.
well, Dan. We've my plant of the week was a Rieger begonia, and Dan and Ken's plant of the week was a Begonia Rex. Now, how can that happen? We both had begonias.
Close.
First time ever we've had the same plant of the week. Well, not the same plant, same genus.
Well, the old saying is that great minds think alike.
Well,
and then somebody in the back of the room puts up their hand and says, "Yes, but fools seldom differ."
Yeah, that's right. But Dan,
Exactly.
we like I say, we've been on the air a lot together.
Yes.
And this is the first time that Ken and I have had the same genus. Now, we didn't get the species right, but we got the genus.
Well, that's a good thing, because both having exactly the same plant of the week is that's not really what it's all about.
No. That's right.
It's difficult.
Now I'm still looking for a Pachypodium. You know that. Now I'm
I
thinking
know you're looking for a Pachypodium, and as soon as I find one, I will gather it up and.
Yeah. Well, have you ever heard of tissue culture?
Yes.
Well, I'm thinking I could bring my little scoop a piece of yours into that, into the petri dish, and do the tissue culture thing.
Oh, I always thought tissue culture had to do with Kleenex.
Oh. Okay.
Oh,
well,
boy.
It's okay. That's
any
okay.
part of mine is available for tissue culture if you can do it.
Yeah. No,
and I do believe that our friend Richard Fournier down at the south end of the valley knows quite a bit about that.
Yes, he's a tissue culture guy. Dan, I'm going to leave your Pachypodium alone and just visit it once in a while. Yeah. Anyway.
Well,
you're calling out a common name for that. I was just looking it up today. The common name is just Madagascar palm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Madagascar is correct. Palm is not.
No.
And of course, they also occur in South Africa.
Oh, do they?
Yes. A number of species are natives of South Africa.
Yeah, I was quite amazed. Pachypodium, there's about 12 species.
Yeah.
In the genus. And it just complicates the whole thing, What kind of Pachypodium do I want?
Any kind's a good kind.
Any kind. I'll take anything right now.
Yes. Well, I think some of them can be quite difficult to grow, but others are obviously not, because they certainly are out there in the trade in some numbers.
Yeah.
I guess it's just all the thorns on the the spikes going up the trunk, which is what I think is the coolest thing, really, about them. But
well, same with the Alawadia, the same idea, very prickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But then they're kind of related, not way back, I guess, because they're both found in that what they call the prickly forest or the prickly jungle in Madagascar, amongst other things too. Anyway, that's beside the point. I will eventually get a hold of one, and we'll have a good time.
We'll have a party.
And I really enjoyed my visit in your greenhouse the other day.
Well, Dan, it was an honor to have you there, and we sat and we looked at plants and Dan is full of information on history and the background behind a lot of these plants, and that's always fascinating. Well,
I was in Farmers Fruit and Produce here in Winfield yesterday, and lo and behold, there in neat little packages for sale were Jerusalem artichokes.
Oh.
And I got some because I think they're very good. They do really well in soups. They do really well as a roast vegetable around a chicken, turkey, or whatever you're roasting in the oven.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, they're one of the few vegetables native to Canada.
Oh, they're native here?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, we used to grow them, and that's the root.
The root, yes, not the globe artichoke.
Not the globe artichoke. Now, are they actually both artichokes?
Well, the Jerusalem artichoke is a sunflower.
Oh, see, common name again.
Yep. And we think that the origin of this, the French word is girasol, which got somehow twisted into Jerusalem.
Oh, I see.
Where the artichoke came from, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is a sunflower, and
native
is native of North America, including Canada. Has been used since well into Aboriginal times. And it's, I think, unfortunate that it's so rarely seen on Canadian dinner tables.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. So, where did you find that?
They were at Farmers Fruit and Produce here in Winfield.
Well, there you go.
And if we purchase those, I'm sure we could plant them, couldn't we?
Oh yeah. I wouldn't doubt that. And they have a reputation for being
invasive.
prolific.
Invasive.
Mm.
And
but you know what's worse? What's worse is that comfrey.
well, yes,
And the other thing is worse is the hot stuff, the stuff you make for
horseradish.
Horseradish, yeah, that's really bad in the
Yes.
garden. Yeah.
Invasive.
But
yeah.
you know something that's even worse than all of those?
What?
Well, it's the thing that you go out and you buy and you bring it home, you plant it, and it dies.
Yeah, that's worse. Yeah, yeah,
Doesn't matter what it is.
yeah.
Doesn't
That's
matter
right.
what it is.
That's right. That's right. Well,
Yeah, there you go.
250-862-2525. If you want to join us today, we're talking plants. We always do that when we've got Dan on the line because he's a plant guy, and we always enjoy the depth of knowledge that he has and also just the chat that we get into when it comes to plants. I want you to explain to the listening audience, Dan, because you can do it so eloquently, the difference between a yam and a sweet potato. Come on, tell them.
Well, a yam and a sweet potato, these are two different genera. Yam is Dioscorea, and the sweet potato is Ipomea. Ipomea, of course, is the same genus as morning glories and those sort of climbing flower things. Here in Canada, we get commonly two different varieties of sweet potato. One is yellow, the other is sort of orange. And though there are now a few other types being offered, the two common ones are both sweet potatoes. In the trade, the grocery trade, which incidentally didn't pass Botany 101, in the trade they call the orange sweet potato a yam, which it is not. A real yam is a much larger root, grown under different conditions. It's a staple crop in a lot of areas of the tropics, particularly in the Caribbean and in West Africa. Yam is like a sort of coarsely grained potato with not a whole lot of flavor. It needs culinary help, which the people who grow it understand perfectly well. But if you really want to experience a genuine yam, you can go to independent grocery in the Capri Mall, and there they have a line of produce that is actually grown in Jamaica. So you can get 2 or 3 different types of real yam, and you can get bananas that are regular bananas, but they're very, very green, which is the way that most people in Jamaica eat them as a cooked vegetable.
Oh, interesting.
So when you're in the grocery store and you're looking at these two sweet potatoes, one called sweet potato, the other called yam, that is like turning around and seeing a red delicious apple called an apple. So then you're wondering what the golden delicious one might be called because it's a different color.
Right. No, I get it. And for years, I was in the column of ignorance, and knew that or thought that the yam was that orangey colored sweet potato, but it's not. And so people have to change their it's like calling concrete cement. Cement is what glues the concrete together.
Yes.
Concrete is concrete, and that's when you add the gravel. It's even concrete before you mix it in with water. It's called concrete.
Yeah.
Cement is the powder that's in there that makes it happen. So it's not a cement truck. It's a concrete truck. It's just, and so the yam is not a sweet potato. So there you go.
There you go. Very good, though. I really
Dan,
appreciate that.
It's always great having you on. Have you got anything that you need to tell the listening audience before you flee and feed your pheasants and parrots and plants and everything else?
Well, No, I think probably the listening audience might even be fed up with hearing it from me for now. So, other than to wish everybody a very calm, quiet, cool, collected, and safe Saturday, I will say see you next week.
Oh, thanks, Stan. Thanks. We always appreciate you popping in, and we had a great discussion today. Take care, buddy.
I will.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there you go, Ken.
There you go.
I think we should take a break.
I believe we should, for sure. It's that time.
Invite the calls.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Well, again, just give us a call, 250-862-2525, and we'll be back right after these messages with more AM 1150 Garden Show.
Here we are, back with you on the AM 1150 Garden Show, and we've got the phones starting to ring here, 250-862-2525 to get through to us. And right now we have Hendrik joining us. Good morning, Hendrik.
Oh, good morning. I had an fuchsia that I transplanted into a single pot from the outside. I had it in the grass for a few days, and it's been in the house about 3 weeks now. Mm-hmm. It dropped all its buds and flowers, and it keeps dropping its leaves. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's just that change of environment that's doing that. We used to actually let our fuchsias go dormant, didn't we, Ken?
Yeah, we would keep them from year to year, but we would, they can handle going right down to the freezing point, but it really triggers them to go dormant and shed their leaves and be deciduous and all that. So that's what they're doing.
So do they like to be kind of wet, or should they kind of dry out before you water them again? Like I've been watering it only about once a week.
Yeah, I would be keeping them a bit on the dry side and then storing them in a cool location where it's, ideally around maybe less than 10 degrees Celsius.
Oh, so it's like I have them in a living area where it's nice and warm, and so it wouldn't really start blooming again inside.
You could try, but it will probably shed, and then you'll have to wait for it to go through a process where it starts to leaf out again. But don't overwater it, or it will develop root rot. And keep it in the brightest location you have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, letting it go on the dry side and then giving it a good soaking when you do.
Yeah,
okay. Okay. Right
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for calling. Bye-bye.
You coined a phrase years ago, Ken, with me. He says, you have to develop a rhythm in your watering techniques. Yep. Rhythm. Now, I'm doing that with the greenhouse. Now, I've got mostly succulent plants or plants in large pots. So I don't have to water a lot at this time of year in the greenhouse, but I have to keep a sharp eye on things because sometimes you get a little complacent and you don't catch something before it might be a little on the too late side. There's certain things like, I have a few plants in there, geraniums and things they're so forgiving. All my succulents are forgiving. You can let them get bone dry and then give them a good soaking, and you can do that. Yeah, just I wait till they get really dry. But there are certain things such as the hibiscus, the tropical hibiscus that I have in there. I have to keep an eye on that. An asparagus fern, I have to keep an eye on that.
You know what I let get too dry this year was my Euphorbia leucanera.
Oh, really?
Which to the point where the growing tip died.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
it's just it's one of those things. Like you say, you sort of become complacent because you think it's just like a cactus, and so you just sort of forget about it, and you think it's fine, it's fine, but it can go so far. Everything hits that point. But what I find with the succulents is the leaves start to get really crinkled up, and they start to. You can tell they're dehydrating. Yeah. And then you have to be super careful during the winter months is just to water a very tiny amount and then maybe wait for a few hours and come back and just water a tiny amount again. And so you're just lightly soaking it, in particular just right near the stem, because in nature you would only get that little bit of water, and sometimes the water trickles down. It's like dew that comes off the plant itself, and it trickles down to the bottom of the stem. And then that's where the roots will grab it right away and put it into storage. Whereas they're not worried about the whole root mass becoming wet, which, as you know, some of those succulents don't like that.
Yeah. It's fascinating how the various plants do maintain their moisture. Some of them have air roots, and those air roots are actually taking moisture in from the air too, as well as oxygen and other things. But then other things don't have air roots. Other plants, such as my flamingo flower, flamingo flower. I'm trying to think of the proper name for it, but it can stand to be wet constantly. Always wet.
Yeah, and that's where, again, learning about the plant, where it comes from. It's like peace lilies. A peace lily lives in kind of a boggy, swampy area,
right?
In nature, pretty much. So you're going to just keep that in mind. So it probably doesn't mind to be a little wetter than say your average house plant.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating, and as you say, you get a rhythm with your plants. You know your plants. We've got, Ken, and this is not. I wouldn't lie to you. I seriously would not lie to you. Okay. We bought, when we were first married, a little pothos plant, and we stuck it in a little. It's a piano. It's a not plaster of Paris, but a ceramic piano, old fashioned piano that's skinny. So it's the piano. The container is the shape of a piano, and it's about an inch and a quarter deep, or deep. It's about 3 inches deep, inch and a quarter wide, and about 4 inches wide, or what I'm saying?
Long.
Yeah, long. And we bought this pothos, and we bought this thing. We used to have grab bags back in the day. Mom used to put together for our Christmas open house. She'd put together a big basket full of grab bags for 20 cents or 50 cents or whatever. And we grabbed one of these bags just for fun, and I had to put some holes in the bottom of it, drill some holes because it didn't have any holes. We put this pothos in there, this tiny pothos. I crammed it in because it had. We still have that pothos in that pot.
Same pot.
Same pot, same soil.
Now it goes all the way around your living room?
No, we just keep cutting it back, and it's just a little planter, and we just keep cutting it back, and it's got this big, huge trunk on it because it's been cut back so often.
Yeah.
But
see, that plant does have those air roots that it'll take moisture right out of the atmosphere. It's an epiphyte.
Yeah, it's just
it's fascinating how plants survive.
Yeah.
And that brings to mind, how plants survive for years and years and years with the right amount of attention, I guess, is back in 1988, you and I, I did a thing on CHBC with building a bonsai out of a Ficus benjamina, the regular,
the Wrigley one.
Just the regular one.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did it. We put it into one of Barry's pots, Barry Salaberry's pots. He was making some little fancy bonsai pots. We put it into that, put it all together, and I still have that same bonsai in the same pot. I've never repotted it or anything. It's just a ball of roots right now.
Did we not do a video on that or something?
Yeah, well, it was on CHBC. So you said you told me you have it maybe somewhere.
Have that.
It was way back.
Tons of VHF tapes.
Yeah, I think I was just a little kid. I might have. I don't know.
VHS tapes from back there, and lots of those CHBC VHS tapes.
Yeah.
I don't recognize myself when black
you
hair,
think it's
black
me.
beard. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, 250-862-2525 to get through to us today. We are having some fun talking plants, and Ken and I are here to help you with your gardening issues. But I'll tell you, we had a pretty good frost last night, so it's an indication that we are now into the time where you can't be growing tomatoes outside and can't be doing all that.
Yeah.
However,
sure.
Planting your garlic and things like that is something you can do, and I've done that. But I'm just looking for something I was going to talk about, and I just can't seem to find what I was going to say. But
something seasonally appropriate, I'm sure. How about Remembrance Day?
Let's talk about that. The fact that we have Remembrance Day coming up, and wear your poppy to show your respect for our veterans and our folks that passed away in the war and fought so hard for our freedom and whatnot.
Yeah, and donate.
Yeah, give to the Legion because they do wonderful work. 250-862-2525 to get through to Ken and I today. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more AM 1150. We are back. We're back with you again on the AM 1150 Garden Show and having a lot of fun today. And especially now that we have been joined by Vicki on line one. Good morning, Vicki.
Good morning. I love your show.
Thank you.
And I have a question. I have a honeysuckle in the backyard that did nothing for about 4 years. And all of a sudden this year it just blossomed and grew like wildfire. Now it still has what I would call buds. They haven't broken open into the flower yet. And I just was out there and feeling them, and there's still like a tube kind of not open. But they don't feel frozen. And I'm wondering, do I just leave that plant the way it is, or do I cut it back to, however, a foot off the ground or something?
I would just leave it as it is.
Okay.
The plant will know how to get into winter. If you have to snip off a little bit here or there just to, if it's hanging out or not looking right, you can either tie it up a bit or you can snip it back a little. But ultimately, the plant knows how to get itself through winter. A few years back, we had several honeysuckles that bloomed right through past Christmas. So,
oh, really?
So it is possible. They're pretty durable. They're very drought or frost tolerant, so they just keep on going and going. And so you never know. Sometimes those are actually flower buds that are yet to open up.
Still to open, right? Yeah, I didn't know whether I should cut it down. Like I didn't know how to handle it because it never ever got more than 6 or 8 inches out of the ground. Yeah. But now it's like, it's tall and it's hanging over we've got a retaining wall there. It's hanging over the retaining wall. So, and the hummingbirds love it.
Yeah, and if there's any left, because there are a few hummingbirds still left, they would probably appreciate a snack as they go by if they kept on blooming. But you can just tie them up, and then in the spring, if you want to snip off a little bit more, that's fine, because that'll encourage more growth, encourage them to branch a little bit more so it gets thicker. And, of course, they bloom on new growth anyway, so that'd be good.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll wait till spring and give it a little haircut.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks for calling.
I love your show.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Vicki. Appreciate the call.
Bye.
Appreciate that. Bye-bye.
And we have Andy joining us. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Excellent.
Good, thanks.
Good. Hey, I got a question for you. You might be able to help me with. Maybe you've never had this one before. I'm looking at doing a 16 by 24-foot little ice skating rink in my backyard for the grandkids for the winter. And I'm just wondering, is this going to have any serious repercussions on the grass back there throughout the winter or the springtime, or any helpful hints?
I'm going to let this guy from Cranbrook answer that question.
Yeah. We had so many backyard rinks. The grass is pretty durable. It's one of these things where if you have sort of a freeze and then a thaw and a freeze and a thaw and a freeze and a thaw, which is what we often get here in the Okanagan. You never quite know. Out in the Cranbrook area, in these Kootenays, at least we used to get a freeze and it would stay frozen all winter. And the ice would actually protect the lawn underneath because it was so, just perfect, and it stayed pretty cold all winter. I think that either way, the lawn will still survive. I always think of the Vancouver area where it rains for most of the winter, and a lot of the grass lives in these areas, especially when you see it in the fields. And there's these low spots that fill right up with water. And what that does is it definitely removes all the nitrogen from the earth there in those locations. That's something that's called denitrification, which occurs whenever there's puddles of water sitting. But again, that's a temporary thing. And once the things dry out in the spring, the plants tend to come right back. And, even if it was slightly, thinner or something, you could just apply a bit of fresh seed in there and away you go.
Yeah. And I think, I'll butt in here, I think one of the things that people often say, can I lay plastic down first? And I think that's a no-no, right, Ken?
Yeah, I would say that there's probably a lot of recipes, and being in Canada, I think we could look up what's the best way to build a backyard rink, and it would give you those clues. But the one thing I don't think I'd worry too much about the grass itself, but like you're saying, Don, when you put that plastic on there, it creates this environment where you get molds and you can get fungus growing that could actually potentially damage the lawn.
The plastic helps in certain ways because it holds the moisture, it holds the water. And then when if you do get a melt, oftentimes the water sits there and then freezes up again when you want it
You're better to let the earth breathe.
You bet. I think
whenever
so.
it has the opportunity.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different ways of doing this. Like if you go on YouTube or if you just Google it, there's a lot of different recipes. And I was thinking of putting the 6 mil poly down, but that was my concern is, here where you do have the thaw and the freeze, that potentially could hurt that because it's going to be 200 square feet of lawn. It's quite a chunk, and probably would be better just to, I guess, throw water on that, pack the snow and throw water down and keep doing that until you get it to a nice level, eh?
Well, I would again. I like the idea of following something that someone else has done, and so there are people who use plastic and people who don't. So I would just investigate both those, and then use your best decision, and likely, if you can, go with one without the plastic.
Yeah, I go by. A couple of years ago, we had a band reunion, and I set up a stage in my backyard. Now this is summertime, so it's a different story.
Yeah,
but I put down a stage with some poly first, and then put the stage on top of the poly. And that chunk of lawn died, and it took a while to get it back. Now that's summer, that's not winter. So I maybe I'm thinking too hard on it. But like Ken said, I think, Andy, if you do a little more investigation on air, I mean, I've only built one ice rink in my whole entire life, and that was when in the flower shop parking lot there for the kids. I did 1 year. I built an ice rink. Prior to that, the problem in the Okanagan is it's really hard to find that window of opportunity. You've got to have a nice stretch of cold weather. And
it's usually in December, mid to late December, you get a good snap, and if you're lucky, it goes to the end of January or into February. And so it's always worth it. I mean, wow. How nice is that, eh? Have your own rink.
Just experiment with it and learn from the mistakes and let it go from there. It's just that nowadays with this COVID thing, seems like everything's shut down, so these little guys have nowhere to go outside in the wintertime. So I'm going to give that a try.
You're a good grandpa.
All right, thank you. You are too, Don.
Okay. All
right, take care.
Take care, Andy.
Take care.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, we're going to we got coming up here, we got the break at the 10 o'clock, or the 9 o'clock break, I should say. And we got a whole rip-roaring hour of garden show after that 10 o'clock break. 9 o'clock break. I keep saying 10 o'clock, but Ken, it's only 9 o'clock. It's not 10 o'clock. And of course, we're technically it's 10 o'clock because
it's not.
We went back an hour, but
in our heads.
I'm still feeling 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
the dogs still haven't got back on track.
No,
they still think dinner time is 4 o'clock instead of 5.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, I still get up too early.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
Well, dogs don't have a concept of time.
No, they don't. So they don't know that there's a time change, But,
they just have a concept of food.
Yeah, that's right. Food and pets and walks and balls. Those are the things that are dogs that we're in our family.
It's a priority.
The ball is big, the food is big, the walk is big, and the pets and the tummy rubs are big. They're all big.
There you go.
Those are all.
I like tummy rubs too.
Grinder likes tummy rubs as well, so I'm not in on that, Grinder. You'll have to find somebody. Might have to hire somebody.
Look, all I'm saying is dogs have a great life, and if I can aspire to be at least like a quarter of a dog, why not?
That'd be pretty good.
That's right.
There you go.
Well, if you want to talk more to Grinder, he's the guy that answers the phone when you phone into the garden show, and that number is 250-862-2700. 2525, and we've been having some fun today. We've got just a couple of minutes left of this portion of the show. I must say, I just took my Husqvarna auto mower back to Savoy for the...
Did you ever ride that thing down the street?
No, I haven't. No? A kitty cat could ride it, I think. But anyway, so I took it back for its winter, cleanup and servicing, and it sleeps there all winter. It hibernates in Savoy equipment, and that's the beauty.
I see.
That's the beauty of the service that they have there, is that they have that service where they'll come and pick your auto mower up, and they'll take it back to the shop, clean it all up. They put it on a charge all winter so that the battery stays safe, and keeps it nice and warm all through the winter. And then you get it back in the spring, and away you go. We're just right on the money.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a short break here. Just after we come back, the number to get through to us is 250-862-2525. We're going to take that break for the news and be back with more AM 1150 Garden. Well, here we are, back with the second half of the 2-hour garden show that happens every Saturday morning. It's an absolutely gorgeous day out there, Ken. The sun's shining, and the frost is
cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It was frosty this morning, quite crispy when I got up at 6 this morning and went out to the greenhouse, checked that out. It's nice and warm in the greenhouse. Gets as low at night as 17.
In the greenhouse.
In the greenhouse. And I've got not 17. I've got the temperature set for 22. And with a 2-degree differential. So if it gets down to 20, it fires up and goes up to 24. And then comes back down to 20 again, then back up to 24. There's a 2-degree differential there. Really a good little machine, that Wadsworth controller. If anybody out there has greenhouses, have a greenhouse, and you want the coolest, neatest, tidiest little controller, computerized controller that will literally control your heat and 3 stages of cooling for, $650, $700. I mean, I know it's a little bit pricey, but heavens, it's really worth it. Because
in comparison, just think about the past when we used to have equipment for the old greenhouses and whatnot, and we'd get the exact same thing, but it covered an entire wall, and it was these huge panels and computers and stuff.
Relays.
Now it's just this little box you put on the wall. So in comparison, I bet that old system was probably $12,000 or more. And now it's down to $600.
No, it's a good little controller. I'm really enjoying it. And my cucumbers, I've got my tomatoes. We were talking about tomatoes, first of all, talking about the fact that our garden tomatoes are still in the kitchen and ripening up nicely. And my little grape tomatoes, I got a basket full of them still ripening up. And I've got some of my beautiful Sal Caruso tomatoes. And it's the only one I'm going to grow next year. I'm not growing any other tomato other than Sal's, I forget what they call it, but it's a huge, looks like a paste tomato, like it's got that point on it.
Like an oxheart almost,
meaty and delicious, flavorful.
I'm sure it's the same one we grew this year.
Prolific.
Yep.
And
it comes true to seed.
Comes true to seed. You can just collect the seed.
Yep.
And plant the seed next year. And so that's all I'm going to grow. I grew a fantastic and an early girl and
If you find something good, and especially if you know the source, because that's the key, is that, just sometimes I buy the seed and I get the wrong seed in the package. It doesn't always happen. That's where good seed companies, sometimes you really have to rely on them, so you got to make sure you get a good, trustworthy company.
But if you take the seed, and it is true to seed, you can explain that to the folks that sometimes you collect the seed, and it is true to farm. And I'm still not quite into the biology of that, but
the genetics,
the genetic thing. But you get a seed. What's a first filial generation? What does that mean? First, the F1 hybrid.
The F1 hybrid.
Yeah. So the seed that you get from this particular tomato comes true to form. It doesn't, even though it's cross-pollinated and everything, it's still that tomato. But a lot of things, the hybrids that you buy, if you plant the seed, you don't know what you're going to get, really, do you?
No, you could get, who knows, it could be anything. But these are, the term, I think, open pollinated is what we commonly hear. It just means that, it can be pollinated by anything and it'll still produce the same fruit.
Right.
Whereas the hybrids are not so much like that. They're specific varieties that have been bred together to get a specific result. Mm-hmm. And those F1 hybrids, every single seed is guaranteed to be that exact variety, but its offspring will be a blend of whatever. Who knows what it'll be. Yeah. And it won't be the original, guaranteed, because that was a specific combination of genetics. And so, and you'll find that with F1 hybrids, sometimes when you pick up a package of seeds, you'll see up in the right-hand corner, or sometimes left-hand corner, it'll say F1 right on it. You'll know that's a specific one. It's taken a lot of work and effort to develop the seeds, and you'll notice the price tag is either it's the same price, but you only get 2 seeds, or it's one of those things. And I recall, just being in the greenhouse industry, there was many types of seeds that we had to purchase that were F1s, and we had to pay big time. And it was often 20, 30, 40 times higher than regular seed.
The interesting thing is, from Stokes, of course, I deal mostly with Stokes, Stokes seeds. The greenhouse tomatoes, we can't get Vendor and all those other old ones anymore, but they've got newer tomatoes. And the cluster, they all develop together. So you've got a cluster, it's not just, the truss, as Dad used to call them, a truss, right? Mm-hmm. And all the tomatoes on the truss are developing at one time, so you can pick the whole truss.
Right.
And you see that in the stores now, the whole truss with all the same. And that's interesting. Is
that determinate?
Well,
or indeterminate?
No, it's an indeterminate
Could be
plant.
Indeterminate.
It's an indeterminate plant, but it's just that the cluster comes on all at one time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just, like quite often on your tomato plants in the garden, you'll have your truss, and you'll have a couple of ripe ones, the ripe ones there, and the rest are developing, right? Mm-hmm. These all come on at once. Now, I've done 2 types, and now that my greenhouse is really producing, I've got Cobra. That's the variety of tomato I got in there right now, Cobra. Mm-hmm. Doesn't do that well outside. We've tried a couple plants outdoors, the Cobra, and they don't produce that well. I don't know what it is, but they don't do well outside. Mm-hmm. The Comete is one step up. The Cobra, you pay $17, or maybe it's $22, something like that, for 25 seeds. Mm-hmm. Comete, you pay $45 for 25 seeds. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to try Comete in the spring, but I brought in Cobra seed because our good friend, my good friend that I can't remember her name, Marlene Good. Marlene Good. Marlene gave me a couple of Cobra plants, and she brought in, actually in April this spring, she brought to me a couple of tomatoes, Cobra tomatoes that she'd grown in her greenhouse. And Ken, they were delicious. They were just really, really good. And so that's why I ordered some Cobra in from.
Yeah, that's really the key. That's what I've always found, that the breeders, people who breed different types of tomatoes, they're often, they go for size, or they go for color, or they go for
disease
shape or disease resistance or whatever. But, what about flavor, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's the one thing. I kind of like a mixture of everything, but I really like the flavor overall.
Flavor.
Yeah.
We're going to go back to the phone lines. We got Sandy joining us. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
So I have a cherry tomato that I had in a large pot, brought it in the house or in the greenhouse. Of course, all the leaves are going brown and stuff, so I'm taking those off, but there's a new sprout at each place.
It's bouncing back.
Yes. So I was thinking that I would just let the tomatoes ripen and pick them, but now I'm thinking I'm going to try to bring the plant through.
Sure.
Yeah, well, why not? it's fun to try. That's for sure. It's easier with peppers than it is with tomatoes.
My hot peppers. I brought those pots back in again this year, and we're just going to take them through another year.
Well,
Keep on trucking.
That's great.
Got a couple crops off of them this year because I got the early crop, and then they had another one.
That's great. That's
Very
great.
Cool.
Ken, you often talk about the difference with when a plant is outside and all the sunshine and everything like that, and the environment, and then the change when you bring it in. Those leaves actually need to sort of abort and then have new ones come on.
New ones grow in,
to
adapt to the environment.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that's what's going on there, Sandy.
That's like new experiment for this winter.
Well, you betcha.
Sounds great.
You are having a ball, and I really appreciate that.
I've also got snippings of my basil plant, the flower head snippings.
Yes.
In a vase.
Oh.
Now, if I leave those, will those flowers produce viable seed?
I think the best is vegetative cuttings. They root so easy. I don't know. It might be viable. That might be viable, but it might be a mixture of something. Who knows?
Yeah. If it's just a standard variety of basil, I'm sure that they would be just another standard variety. If they're one of the fancier varieties, or maybe a hybrid, as we were just
I've got a
talking
ruffled basil.
Yeah, ruffled ones. That's a good question.
And that's not the one that's got the flowers on, because my ruffled basil, it was a brought through one.
Mm-hmm.
And I planted it in the garden, and now I've got it back into a pot in the greenhouse.
Huh.
But it never, ever flowered. My other basil plant, I had to trim many times through the summer. And this ruffled one, it hasn't even come to a flower.
Isn't that something?
But it roots marvelously from cuttings.
Yeah, they root very easily.
Wow. I love basil. It just smells so good.
I always think of faulty towers when I think of basil. Basil.
That's basil.
Yeah. Well, Sandy, we always appreciate your call.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, dear.
Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. And we're going to go to Pam. Good morning, Pam.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a quirky question. Have either of you ever tried to bring your jalapeno pepper plants inside after the warm season's done? And if you have, what have you done with them, and have they lasted very long?
Well, Sandy just got off the air with us, and she's done that a couple of times, and she's doing it again this year, bringing her peppers in. They are perennial. Down in the south, they grow them. They just keep growing, don't they, Ken?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many years they can survive. There's a certain amount of vigor required, but at least a year, I would say, for sure. Like, so, one winter, I would say would be doable. Mine, I had the big California Wonders, and what I did was I grew them in like big 5-gallon pails, and they grew and they did their thing outside, and they were still all covered with little peppers, so I just moved them straight inside. The key was moving them in before it got too cold, without giving them too much of a chill. And then they would just keep on growing, and they produced pretty well. I must say that the peppers that produced indoors didn't have as much flavor as the ones that were produced outdoors. And that just brought to mind that, I should really integrate a grow light of some sort. Yeah. That would certainly help.
The problem I had, Pam, and you may keep an eye out for this, because, we're excited to hear you try this, but the problem I had was the aphids. The aphids just consumed the peppers when they came in. They just got so excited. Oh, I just got a reprieve from the cold, and they just started breeding, and boom, we had so many aphids on our peppers. It was something else. Yeah.
That is a good point. That's a good point. I've been really relishing in the opportunity to pick kale recently without as many aphids.
Yeah, because the temperatures
it's been pretty great, because especially if you grow the frilly kale. Oh, frilly kale is an aphid's best playground, because it's pretty hard to get them off of there. But anyways, my son grew multiple jalapeno pepper plants this summer, and whatever he was doing and the season, the way it rolled, it just seemed to be a really vibrant year for those plants. And so the end of September, they had so many peppers still on them, still to come, and we thought, well, let's just bring them in and see what happens. So far, so good. He's thinking about hanging some Christmas lights on them just to add some seasonal flair next month. And I just thought, I don't know how long they'll last, but I guess we'll see. So I just thought I'd ask. So we'll see. So they might actually continue to produce peppers then if they get enough light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure they will. Yep.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah. And then the possibility of putting them back out next year if they survive the winter season is there?
Yeah, you'd have to go all the way to almost the end of May, so it's a long road. And just, you never know. Like, it has happened.
And you can do the old put them out in the daytime, bring them in at night through late April into May, but you don't want to leave them out overnight because it's too cold at night.
No, I hear. Well, they would have been compost already, so they've got a little more time anyway.
Like cats, 9 lives right there.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Appreciate
Take
the call.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And on that note, we invite your calls, 250-862-2525 to get through to us today. We're going to take a short break. Be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. We are back with you on a beautiful sunny Saturday, a little chilly, but sunny. And we live in God's country here. We really do. This is a great place, great neck of the world, neck of the woods to live. And I was just thinking this morning when I was looking at the greenhouse this morning, there's, October 13th is when I brought all my succulents in. My tropicals, got them all put to bed in the greenhouse, right? So October, November, December, January, February, March, April, end of April is when I can start thinking about putting them outside.
Right.
That's 6 months. So not bad. The Okanagan, 6 months in, 6 months out. Now, if you're in Brisbane, Australia, it's a different story. 12 months of the year, it's outside.
It could be too hot.
Then you go to Calgary, Alberta, and we're a little bit less. I don't think they'd have that same 6 months window. I think they're probably more like a 5,
3 or 4.
Oh, 3 or 4. No, I don't know.
Depends on the season.
If there's somebody, it'd be interesting to hear from somebody that was a prairie person that grew up and gardened and that in Calgary. Yeah, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, like Edmonton.
Yeah, and that's where the cold crop thing really comes into practice, because with a little cold frame or a little greenhouse like you have, even if it's unheated, it makes a big difference for sure. But it's a little tough to have a glass greenhouse out on the prairie due to the hailstorms and whatnot. But it's a challenge growing out there. I always have I don't know. I feel that these prairie gardeners are a different breed. Like they're
they
amazing.
are, and I admire
amazing.
them. I admire them. My brother-in-law's wife, Carol, they live in Calgary, actually the outskirts of Calgary, and she's an avid gardener. And you go to their place, and their yard is fabulous, full of plants and flowers and everything like that. But the season is short. There's no doubt about it. So I'd like to hear from someone who has gardened on the prairies, and just give us a little tale of how that season works. Like I'm saying, we've got 6 months relatively frost-free. 5.5 months. Because at the end of April, you normally don't get a frost. You can, but unusual.
Depends on
unusual.
The year,
Unusual to get a frost.
We were unable to plant annuals out until June 5th one year because it was still freezing at night, and then we just said, that's it, we're going planting them anyway because it was still freezing.
Live or die.
Live or die, we got to do it. But so they say May 24th, long weekend, and that's what we aim for, just to be safe because. But like you say, you can always go buy new plants. Yep. But the plants that do sit in that cold soil, you've said it before, that they don't really benefit. Other than the cold crop plants, and we got to really just shut it down and note that there is a big difference between warm loving plants and cold loving plants, because those cold loving plants, they want to be out when there's still snow on the ground almost, and they're happy. Like the kale, we were talking about kale earlier. There's lots of plants and lettuce and spinach and a lot of the really good green type plants are really great. They love the cold, so they like to freeze a bit.
You know, I'll always remember a conversation that Scott Austin was having with another person. We were standing in line. We were at a conference of some sort, and I hadn't met Scott, but I knew who he was, and I knew what he looked like, so I knew it was Scott. And he was saying, just casual conversation, I think this was in early March or something, and he said, nope, my mother always said if she didn't get her peas in by the end of February, it's too late.
Yeah, you go.
Planting your pea seeds. And there are situations where people plant in the fall. In fact, I think we've got a few customers or clients, or not clients, but listeners out there that have actually said, well, I planted my peas in September, and let's see what happens. They came up, and they're, see if they survive the winter.
Oh, yeah, they've done really well. I know several gardeners who just swear by it. They only plant their peas in the fall. And they're up as soon as they can be up in the spring. They're up early, so the pea seeds survive, and it's just I think it's one of these things like we always complain that sometimes birds get the lawn seed. Well, they really love pea seeds even much more. It's a bigger bite, But I always like to have raised beds, and I like to have them covered with some sort of either chicken wire or something, just to keep the animals away from it, especially if I have something in there that's special.
Speaking of birds and animals, Ken, we've just had a little electrical work done at our place, and in order for the electrician to get at the entrance to our box and whatnot, I had to cut. There was a variegated feather reed grass. I forget the name. Overdam, yeah, feather reed grass, and I cut it right down. And you know how in the center they die out? You know what was in the center?
Mouse nest.
Nope. Quail's nest.
Quail's nest.
A quail's nest. That's right better. In the center there, and all the broken eggs that they had hatched. They're all there.
Oh, that's cool.
Fascinating to see. But so I didn't know that was going on. All that stuff was going on. We didn't know. Well, we had quail in the garden eating my darn peas and stuff, but
that's where they were coming from.
Yeah, they're coming from there. So. Although
I like the quail.
They're so cute.
I watch them what they eat, and the little, especially the young quail, they'll eat the weed seeds.
Yes.
So they go along, and anywhere there's weeds, and particularly those weedy grasses like barnyard grass and even foxtail grass, they'll go along and they'll eat those little seeds, and they love them.
They're so cute. Those little quail. Well, we're going to take a short break here. Invite your calls, 250-862-2525. We're going to get back on track because now it is time for that break at the bottom of the hour, and we really would love to hear from you. 250-862-2525. We'll be back with more AM 1150 Garden Show. We are back with you, and it is Don Burnett and Ken Salvail. We always love being here with you guys, and appreciate all the comments we get on the show because it's kind of a show that's there's no rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes we have something to talk about. Sometimes we don't, but we always know that it is caller driven. So give us a call, even if it's not a question. Even if you just you're calling, just say, "Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, I had a good gardening year this year," and
brag about your pumpkins or something.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, because that's what it's all about. We've always said that right back from the beginning when we were doing it in 1983. We said this is just like gardeners talking over the back fence, chatting about your gardens, and whoa, where'd you get your seed from this year? And this seed didn't germinate, or that did. And
yeah. You know what? I spoke at the Kelowna Garden Club this week. And it was really great. Right. It was really cool to have they have a Zoom set up there so that they have just a few, like a small group of people and all spaced out in the room, and then they have the Zoom camera that sits at the podium, and that gets you to all the garden club members that are at home. So the garden club goes on, and it's really great and pretty cool. I just love talking to gardeners. There's so many great, that exchange, and that's what we do on this show, really. But it's that exchange of information that's so much fun. And, we were talking about worms, of course. What do you talk about? We talked a lot about worms. We talked about composting predominantly, but the worms, they do the work, They're just one of the best part of the garden, I would say, as far as, just as far as organisms that live there and that help you, the worms are the best.
Oh, yeah.
They really are.
Ken, can you get access to a worm bin, like a regular home worm bin? Can you buy them?
Yep.
Well, you buy them online or what? Because I haven't seen them in the garden.
No, it's a system. You can buy a specific bin that's a good. I use a fairly large bin now. So they're like the tote bins, but they're just heavier duty, and they're nice and they're extra deep. I think they're over 12. I think they must be about 14 inches deep, but they're extra long. At least 30 inches long by 24 inches wide. Pretty big bin, and they're fabulous. And then you just start out with some black diamond peat is one of the best things to start with, just to put your base in. And then you can pick up some worms. There's several worm suppliers, so you can get some worms and put a small amount in there. And they love that black diamond peat there. They just get in there and they enjoy it. And then you just start adding your vegetables and stuff on the top. And of course, they come up at night and they feed on whatever you put in there.
Now,
on the surface.
Is there drainage in that or
no?
No drainage. It's like a bin.
You want.
So you don't add water. You never add water. Just your vegetables add the moisture?
Depends on the situation. I had about 6 bins going there for a while, and some of them just seemed to always dry out. And I think I let them get too dry, and it wasn't a good situation. Okay. And the ones that were too wet were not that good either. So it was one of these things where you monitor and you learn to dig down in the corners and check it out. And it's nice to keep that layer of vegetation on the surface. Fresh veggies is really nice, lettuce and, apples, pretty much anything, even oranges, they're fine.
Yeah.
And so just all your table scraps, that was really what we wanted to do, and the worms make quick work of it. And I was talked at the talk I gave at the garden club. I was talking about the time I used time-lapse photography to follow my veggie bins to see what was going on, 24 hours a day for about, I think, 6 days. And what was fascinating was in the daytime, there was no action at all on the surface of those bins, right? Nothing. But at night, it was just a flurry of activity. All the worms would come up, all different species, and they come up and they scavenge on the surface, and they're eating weeds and eating plants. And there was these huge dewworms in the time lapse that were, I swear they were over a foot long for sure. And one of them came up and grabbed a banana peel and tried to pull the whole banana peel down its hole. I couldn't believe it. I thought, is that a snake? What is that thing?
Isn't that interesting?
It's fascinating. But just to watch, 6 nights, and even it was actually starting to freeze a bit. So it would freeze at night too. So they would, on my camera, it had a temperature. It would tell you what the outside temperature was. So as it approached 0, they were still outside doing their thing, right to 0. Wow. But the second it froze, they all went away. Yeah, they were hiding.
I'd love to see that. We've got to go to the phone lines because we've got Val on the line. Good morning, Val.
Hello. I have a question. You mentioned worms.
Yeah.
And I heard a long time ago that if a worm is cut in half or something or whatever, that makes 2 worms. Is that so?
No, that's an old wives' tale. They have parts and they need all of them. The anatomy of the worm. If you Google it, it'll show you the anatomy of the worm. And no,
needs the whole thing.
Yeah. Starfish might grow a new arm, but worms don't regenerate and become 2 worms.
Okay, thanks.
That's a great question, though.
Yeah, thanks for calling in.
Thank you, dear. Okay.
Thanks.
Let's go back to the worm bin that we used to have in the garden center. Now, the worm, the moment you mention that to people, they think, oh, smell and blah, blah, blah. No, there's no smell. No smell whatsoever.
No, you keep the lid on it.
Yeah.
It's got a lid. They don't really need to know. The black bins that I use have a yellow lid, and the yellow lid actually glows a bit in the daytime. So it's nice if the worms kind of know what's night and day because they feed mostly at night. Right. And so they also need to have warmth. Most of the varieties that you use are varieties that live in warmer climates, so they don't like to be outside. They'd rather be in the garage or something like that. Where
Red Wrigglers, right?
Yeah, the California red wigglers, and of course there's all kinds of night crawlers. There's quite a few species you can get now. The South African night crawlers are pretty popular. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's a matter of, you got to have connections, right? You got to have connections.
Well, I really want to do it. Donna keeps mentioning we've got to get a worm bin because what do you do with this? I mean, you can put your stuff out for composting and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but with the rats and stuff around, you're better off to have a system that's, like I say, in the garage is a good spot for them.
Yeah. I remember clearly once with there was an apple in that worm bin, and they actually got inside the apple and ate all the insides out, and all that was left there was this apple skin.
Yeah, and it still looked like a perfect
apple. It looked
apple.
like an apple, but all the insides were eaten out of it. Those worms, they're fabulous. They
really are.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, see, think about it. When they're in your lawn and whatnot, it's a great thing. It's their aeration. They're allowing oxygen to get down into the earth, and especially if you do have heavy soil, it's opening up those little passageways. We always talk about roots needing oxygen. Well, how would they get oxygen? Well, especially if it's compacted or whatever, those little worm tunnels, that's where the air gets in and feeds the roots. And so the plants love the worms.
And often when you have a lot of dew-worm issues in the lawn, making the bumps and all that, it's because they're trying to tell you that your lawn needs aeration.
Yeah, and they come up to feed at night like the other ones. Yeah. I would love to get a time-lapse photography of the lawn to see what goes on when we're sleeping.
So you do that on your cell phone, right?
No, I have one of those wildlife cams.
Oh,
the little wildlife cams, and they got all different settings on them.
There you go.
I just put it like pointing right down at the earth, and see the whole veggie bin come to life at night. And it's just dead in the daytime. Like there's nothing going on in the daytime, but at night, ooh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
There's a party. There's a party.
Speaking of wildlife, we've got some good friends, Sherry and Jim Keller, that just live down the street from us. And I mean literally down the street. They live on Gushigan.
Oh, yeah.
And during that snowfall, guess what they found in their backyard? Bear tracks.
What?
Like bear tracks.
Really?
Yep.
Sure, it wasn't just a huge raccoon?
It would have to be an awfully big raccoon. I mean, these were bear tracks.
That's a 400-pound raccoon?
Bear tracks in the Gushigan area. Well, So I mean, unless they were fooling us, they put it on Facebook.
No, I believe it.
I'll show you that during the break. I'll show you
a lot
the
of bears around.
Show you the picture. I have seen deer in our neighborhood too, but bears? Oh my goodness! And they're supposed to be starting to hibernate now. So why are they around?
Well, they're going to eat right to the bitter end, I'm sure. There's where, as long as there's food available, they'll keep eating. Yep,
fatten up. Well, you know what? Because there are no calls on the line right now, what we will do is take our last break, and that gives us a whole big, wide, fat last segment, okay?
Yep.
And it gives you a chance to phone in, 250-862-25. Well, I haven't asked Gurinder yet. Is that allowed? Let's break. We're going to do that. We'll be back with more AM 1150 Garden. Well, here we are, the last lap of the show. Tiger Woods is going to be playing next week at the Masters.
Oh, Masters.
Totally
they changed it all around, eh?
Totally different Masters. Yeah. Of course, there's no crowds. I think even, whoever wins the Masters, unlikely it'll be Tiger Woods, but wouldn't that be something if it was? But whoever wins the Masters, it's going to be interesting because, all that ceremonial stuff and everything's going to change. And there's no magnolias in bloom. Normally it's in April when you got the southern magnolias blooming, Magnolia Lane, and all that hoopla that happens.
Yeah.
This year is just plain and simple. Let's grind it out, play a game, who's winner take all. And the green jacket is mine, and we have to sanitize the green jacket before we put it on. That kind of stuff. But it'll be good. It'll be fun to watch.
Do you wear your green jacket while you're watching?
I don't, Ken. I have that in the Golf Hall of Fame back in Montreal, Canada.
Oh, there you go. Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, the green jacket that I won several years ago. Yeah, well, anybody could buy a green jacket, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, 250-862-2525. If you want to join us for the last little bit here of the Garden Show, the AM 1150 Garden Show, as I say, we've been here since 1983, when I was a mere baby of 33 years old.
Yeah.
33 years old. So over half my life, I've been doing this.
Yeah.
Over half.
I wasn't even born then.
I know. You were, but you're a mere
What was I doing?
A mere
83,
child.
I was working in greenhouses, of course.
By the, at 83, you were in the greenhouses? Yep. And then you joined up with us in 86, and the rest is history.
Landscaping, before that even,
So I've known you for half my life, I've known Ken Salvail for half my life.
Wow.
I've known you for 10 years.
10 years. It's been a great run. I really enjoyed my time working with you at Burnett's and the greenhouses. That was some of the best memories of my life.
Well, it was great. I'll never forget the first time I met you. You just got me going right off the bat, and you brought some young ideas into the business at the time. You were in your early 20s, I guess, and I was 35 and 36, I guess, and you brought lots of great young ideas into the fore.
In those days, I can recall I was always in seminars everywhere and reading and studying. I was just totally immersed in the whole horticulture thing, and I know we were talking about integrated pest management, which was kind of a new approach to controlling pests and insects, and then just the plant identification thing was out of control. There was just so much, because I had done my apprenticeship program, or was either in it or partway through it, and we were just so we had so many plants to learn in such a short period of time, but it was great. That's what launches a horticulturist. You start from that, and then self-study. Like with anything, I always think, I'm a lifelong learner. I still study every day, and there's so much to know, so much to learn. It's a lot of fun. It's good industry.
We could talk about our relationship over the years, because I'm telling you, it was fabulous. We got a call come in, and old friend Addie has phoned in. Good morning, Addie.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We're well.
Good, thanks. Yeah.
I have a question about my Christmas cactus. Does it need more water than usual, or do they like to dry out like they did before they were blooming?
They need more water than a desert cactus, right, Ken?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they need regular watering, but I still like to let them get dry between waterings. I just feel the soil, and when the surface is dry, then I consider watering it within the next day or so, and then. But
you know what? You totally cut out there, so I didn't hear the answer at all.
Yeah, well, like I say, I just keep checking by feeling the moisture in the soil, and when the moisture, when it starts to feel dry, I consider watering it within the next day or so. And then when I water it, I give it a good soaking, and then just let it go till it pretty much dries out again. So, yeah, that's a cycle I keep on going, whether they're blooming or not. I do know if they dry out too much while they're in bloom, that they will just drop all their flowers, that's for sure.
Oh, okay. So it's better to keep an eye on them, and they want more water when they're blooming than when they're just sitting outside.
Seems like it. Yep.
Okay. My other question is, I've mulched all my roses and everything, but I ran out of mulch for one plant, and I just covered it with soil. Is that a bad thing to do, because the soil is going to be too heavy on it? It won't get any air to it?
It's better to have materials that are porous. It gives you a little better insulation. But you have mulched it up with soil, so that's okay. That's acceptable. I would just say that next time you get a little bit of potting soil or something that's left over, you can just put some of that on it, and that'll give you a little extra insulation.
Super. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a wonderful weekend.
Addie, you as well. Take care.
Happy Remembrance Day.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So the day today, Ken, is 9 hours and 26 minutes long.
Yeah.
7 hours and 25 minutes shorter than the longest day on June 21st.
Yeah.
The shortest day coming up will be on December 21st, and it'll be 8 hours and 5 minutes. So we got another hour and 20 minutes or so to shorten up before we get to December 21st. And then they get longer again. I like the long days. That's what I like.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, these short winter days are dreary and not plant-friendly. And, but the greenhouse is... I can't tell you how much fun I'm having in that greenhouse. And, Ken, we're talking about when we first got together, and I knew, like when we had the interview, you'd gone through your season in Cranbrook.
Mm-hmm.
So you came to Kelowna when the season was done. But I liked you so much right off the bat. I hired you, and you were willing to come on minimum wage, whatever it takes, Don. Minimum wage. I'll be your delivery guy, your runaround guy. Yep. Within a year, within 6 months, that following spring, you're managing the nursery.
Yeah. Well, I was managing the previous one because I worked 7 days a week, and I started. I'm trying to think when it was I started, but I did the same thing with them. As I just said, look, this is what I'm going to do. You can either hire me or hire somebody else. Yep. But this is what I do. This is what I do for a living. This is what I'm going to do. So, and I'll, and I actually, with the other employer I offered, I said, well, I'll work for you for 7 days straight, no charge. Won't even charge you. And then and if you like me, then hire me. And it was awesome because I really loved it. It was like, getting paid to work in greenhouses and to work in the nursery and all that. That's great fun. And being involved with the flower shops too, on both ends, because it was a big deal where I came from. And when I came to Burnett's, of course, they had the biggest flower shops in town, I'm sure, by far. And it was a fabulous experience, and got to just know so many fabulous florists and all about that whole floral industry and how that works. Of course, it was one of the things that we did, at Burnett's, and one of the things I did was driving down to the coast and going to the big Dutch auction and looking through I don't know how many square feet that place is, but it was humongous and full of every plant and flower you could ever imagine. Like, that was a treat. It's always tough getting up at 4:15, to go to work, but it's part of farming, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Ken,
that's good.
Those auction days were fascinating. You sit in the chair. 135 was our number, I think. Yep. And we sit in our chair, number 135, and we sit there with a button. And it was a Monday morning auction, flower auction. And they have these big, huge carts full of various plants, cut flowers. They come through.
Everything you can imagine, tropicals.
Previous to sitting in the chair, of course, you get to go and walk through and look at the cart numbers.
That's why you had to be there at 4:30 usually.
And you mark down the cart you want, and then you sit there, and there's a big clock at the front, and the clock starts at X number of dollars per flat or per pot or per.
Which was usually very, very the highest you could ever imagine.
Yeah, high, and then it just drop, and people press buy one, and then so all of a sudden now there's only a few left, certain number left, and you get down, you gotta have it. So you just jump in.
Sometimes you got to pay more to get it. Whoever buys first gets it. So. It was a great system. It was really a lot of fun, really.
Then you load the truck up, and then you go up to the various stops along the way, like Haney Pottery and the various stops and nurseries and Cato's and that. Just one last story, and I think I've told this before, but the time that Donnie came home, and he had bought this big bucket of delphiniums. And, of course, when you make a mistake, the whole place goes, woo, right?
Yeah.
So he got it.
Yeah.
So he comes home with this big bucket of delphiniums, paid 5 times more than they were worth. And he explained it to me. It was on the back of the truck. Do you know, we accidentally tripped on the thing. It fell off and landed right on the top and broke every delphinium in the bucket.
Every single one.
Done. Done deal. It was a good story. It was a good memory. Yeah. Bad memory, but kind of fun.
It's one of those things in life. Yeah. I can remember a few incidents along the way that were some up and some down.
Okay, well, we've got a caller, Hildegard, but we're going to have to wait till after the show, Ken, because we are getting close to the end of the show. Maybe we can just say quick hello to Hildegard before that. Hildegard?
Yes,
you're on the air. Yeah, do you have a quickie?
Yes, I'd like to know about the Christmas flower.
Oh, the poinsettia.
The poinsettia?
How long do you have to keep it dark?
Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do, because you've got your radio turned up, Hildegard. You hang on. We're going to put you on hold. You hang on, and I will give you the whole story on poinsettias after we go off the air here, and I'll take the line for you and answer your questions, because we've only got about a couple of minutes left here now. We're going to have to give the tips and plants of the week and that sort of thing, and then we're out of here. My tip of the week was think of a child or a young person who would benefit from a gardening experience and get them going, whether it's a grandchild, whether it's a son or a daughter, whether it's a friend's son or daughter or just a neighbor. Turn them on to gardening, because there's nothing better, and they can do that without having to use their iPhone. Plant of the week this week for me is a Rieger begonia.
Very nice. My tip of the week this week is that you can store your leaves that you collect this year in garbage cans and actually moisten them down, put the lid on, keep the lid on all winter, and in the spring the whole thing goes moldy a bit, and it creates this beautiful leaf mold that you can use as a compost product and add it into your gardens. I usually add it around the end of June. Any areas that are blank. All right, and my plant of the week is also a begonia, but it's a Begonia Rex. Begonia Rex is a beautiful plant that's grown for its foliage. Dawn's was grown for its flowers, and Begonia Rex has beautiful leaves and just a cool plant, all different colors, sizes, types. Just keep your eyes peeled for those. Excellent plant. That's my tips and plants. Remember to check growercoach.com. Remember to go to the YouTube channel, Grower Coach, and subscribe. Very important.
Way to go, Ken. Just one last note before I give the Shy-Go moment here. I found a marmorated stink bug in my living room.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the invasive one. That's the one that's causing issues. Bad. So I just want to tell people, there's lots of different stink bugs out there, but I found the bad guy in my living room. Now it's frozen in my thing, and it's going to add it to my collection.
Right.
That's the only benefit to this whole thing, is I got one now for my collection, my bug collection.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to just give you the Shy-Go moment, which is a little saying from Alex Shy-Go, Dr. Alex Shy-Go, father of modern arboriculture. And his quote of the week this week is, "People who do not read starve the mind." There you go.
Ooh,
very profound.
Very profound.
We will go and I'll talk to Hilda off the air, Hildegard.
Yep.
And we'll see you next week with more AM 1150 Garden Show.